For more on the situation, I want to welcome on Republican strategist Joseph Pinion, the founder of Pinion Enterprise. So, Joseph, when we look at the Democratic Party right now, I think that one situation yesterday kind of wraps up a little bit of the debate that's being had. It's the idea that Linda Sarsour came out. She made some comments, of course, a Bernie Sanders supporter, that were a little bit out of line with maybe what the Biden campaign is hoping to portray. So they were then forced to denounce her comments. Is this representative of the idea that perhaps the Biden campaign has too big of a tent, they have too many agenda items in it, and it doesn't necessarily represent what Joe Biden thinks?
Well, look, I think the hard truth is that we no longer know what Joe Biden thinks, and ultimately it's not going to matter. I think many people like Joe Biden. They like Joe Biden. Their story resonates with them. But if the old Joe was somebody they liked, the new Joe is somebody they can't trust. And the reality is, if we're looking at somebody who we're not entirely sure will be able to run for re-election were he to win, much less last through an entire first term, the people that he surrounds himself with will be of the utmost importance. And so when he says that somebody like AOC will have a prominent voice in his administration, people should be concerned. And when somebody like Linda Sarsour, who is an unabashed anti-Semite, somebody who does not believe that the state of Israel should exist, somebody who has been a vocal supporter of the anti-Semitic BDS movement, those things should matter. And so I think Democrats have tried to do this, do as we say and not as we do. Everything from Bill Clinton speaking to now Linda Sarsour being able to somehow be in the tent and at the same time being cast out of the tent. But ultimately, I think Republicans should have the opportunity next week to put all these things on broad display.
I think you raised several excellent points right there. And I think one is the representative idea that, for example, Kamala Harris and the idea of announcing a VP was a little bit more important this year around, acknowledging the fact that there is some doubt about Joe Biden, his ability to lead, whether or not he'll even lead for 2 terms or run again in 2024, as you said, if he were to win this year. There's a lot of long-term type of questions that the American people have that aren't necessarily about Joe Biden, but the direction of the Democratic Party. So do you foresee that Republicans will make this not so much about Donald Trump versus Joe Biden, but perhaps Donald Trump versus the progressive wings of the party who may be controlling the Biden agenda?
Look, I think that every incumbent that is successful has been able to make a case for why me, as opposed to the case for why not them. I think that is a trap that the Democrats are hoping that we fall into. This election should be about reminding the American people that a duly elected president was attempted to be removed from office via impeachment. And yet we're on day 3 now of the Democratic convention, and they haven't even mentioned the word because they are hoping that the American people forget the fact that they tried to remove a duly elected president. So I think those are the type of issues that Republicans should be able to tackle head on. It's not about vilifying Democrats as evil. It's about saying that they don't have solutions, that they vilified Trump on COVID-19, and yet the places where they have complete control, wall to wall, from New York to California, are the leaders in death for the COVID crisis, not just here in America, but around the world. So I think that is the message that Republicans should hopefully strike next week. I hope it is the message that Republican pundits embrace as we go through this process, because I think if we try to tear down Kamala Harris, if we try to tear down Joe Biden, we play directly into the hands of the Democrats by not talking about the substance of their policies, which would be disastrous for the country that we love.
I think that's a very good point as well. I mean, we make this point so often on this show. It's always easier to convince someone to vote for something than against someone else. And I think that when you make it the issues relatable to the American electorate, that's exactly what you're doing right there. But I also want to touch on the lower type of ballot ticket items that you touched on right there. President Trump will be on the top of this ticket, which is different than we saw in 2018. And we've seen the Trump administration now make a more outreach effort to the suburbs, try to make a more expansive type of outreach. And then meanwhile, on the Democratic side, you hear Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer saying that he thinks the Senate could be in play as well. So when it comes to the down-the-ballot races, that being the Senate and the House, do you think Republicans will fare a little bit better this year than they did in 2018 or something similar?
I think when you look at history, history shows us that most presidents have the ability to save themselves, but when they are themselves not on the ballot, the coat straps are simply not there. So I think with President Trump on the ballot, I think that you'll see from district to district, if Republicans stop taking the liberal bait, if they focus on the fact that the majority of the are people who voted to remove from office based off an investigation that never really happened. based off witnesses that were never called. I think that would be something that needs to be brought back to the forefront of the American consciousness because it's been pushed to the foreground by this unfortunate and disastrous virus that has wreaked havoc across the globe. I think that is something that Republicans are missing right now from the equation. I think we need to lean into it instead of running from it or acting as if somehow it is a negative thing. I think it's actually a positive thing that could actually leapfrog Republicans to victory come November.
Yeah, I mean, all very good and interesting points, and it's going to be very interesting to see next week if the Republican National Committee follows the guidance that you're putting out there, because I think you're right on the money, and I think they have the benefit of going second when it comes to conventions, of course, with the Democratic convention going this week. So I think they are going to build on a lot of the mistakes that they may have seen this week and hopefully avoid them to some degree next week as well. But Joseph Pinion, I appreciate you coming on and breaking down this issue for us. Thank you very much.